Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something that I need you guys to do me a favor on. I need you to watch this entire video. This video is all about an interview on CNN with the former Prime Minister of Australia. Just so you know, if you're not aware, they did a gun buyback, gun ban in '96. They're talking about that gun ban and they're trying to find common ground how we can learn something for the Americas, blah, 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 blah. This video, straight out, this is the most powerful manipulation on a conversation and mental just agility that I've ever seen on gun control. I don't know what they have in the water in Australia, but this Prime Minister, I watched this video 4 times preparing it for this segment, and I didn't catch his manipulation until the very end. This is a 10-minute segment. I've cut it up in a few different pieces, about 4 clips in total. This is one you guys need to share because this is how they're going to do it here in the United States. This was genius, evil and maniacal, but genius the way it was executed. This is crucial. Let me know what you think in the comments field below because this is something we need to be aware of and talk about, and let's get into it. All right. So, like I was telling you, this is the Prime Minister of Australia. That's who's interviewing. And there's CNN anchor Pam Brown is basically saying, hey, how can we figure this out? So that's the setup. I'm going to let her do her little segment on these little pieces, then we'll get into it.
Well, now to America's other pandemic, and that would be the never-ending cycle of gun violence. There have been 157 mass shootings in the U.S. just this year. Just in 2021. And with congressional action on gun reform seemingly at a standstill, some Americans are asking if other countries can serve as an example. Next week marks...
Some Americans. Yeah, it's them. All right. So the first thing I'm going to say to this setup is also misleading. Just so you guys know, check out my video from a few days ago. I literally walked through the statistics of the 157 mass shootings that they're referencing that they've been doing for CNN forever. Just to give you a tidbit, but check it out. But the tidbit is 25 of those were drive-by shootings where multiple innocents were casualties. 40 of them were from bar and club fights where people started fighting in bars and clubs and shot people behind the people they were aiming at. 11 of them were domestic violence. And 13 were domestic violence, 11 were 2 enemy combatants shooting at each other, like rival gangs shooting at each other, and innocents got hit. They didn't tell you that in that. All they said was 150 mass shootings, which is misleading at best, but that's the case. So now, we're going to go next to her little setup, and she's referencing the Australia ban before we get to the Prime Minister. And this Prime Minister, I don't know what they put in the water, but it's crazy how masterfully he did this.
25 years since Australia's Port Arthur massacre, a mass shooting that killed 35 people. Afterwards, automatic and semi-automatic rifles were banned in Australia. They enacted a national registry and a 28-day waiting period for all gun purchases. And 653,000 firearms were taken out of circulation in a national buyback program. Gun deaths in the country plummeted, and today mass shootings there are nearly non-existent. Compare that to America, the gun capital of the world, where last year there were nearly 12 gun deaths per 100,000 people, more than 14 times that of Australia. But there are some differences, of course. Australia doesn't have a right to bear arms in their constitution. They also don't have a powerful gun lobby like the NRA. Still, could Australia's model have some lessons for the United States?
All right. They did one more piece of manipulation there. Did you notice how when they were talking about the gun reforms and the buybacks and the ban in 1996, they specifically said semi-automatic and fully automatic rifles. I want you to remember that, rifles, okay? Then, immediately, they pivoted to mass shootings, and then they showed gun deaths on a screen and showed statistics. The gun deaths, the actual statistics they showed were gun deaths. 2/3 of those are from suicides. That number they referenced is not related to mass shootings, it's gun violence and gun deaths overall. Very specific, but they switched without telling you. They said the mass shootings is an epidemic in the United States and gun deaths is 11.8. In reality, it's about 3.8. Big difference, not 14 times. So that's a manipulation. But now, this is the part where it's crazy. Keep in mind, I'm going to walk you through this whole thing. They started out with the rifles and semi-automatic rifles. Those are what got banned in Australia. She said that. National Firearms Registry. That's what the point was, right? Pay attention. Watch this.
Many questions for you from what you just said. One is gun rights activists in the U.S. are concerned. One of their big concerns with more laws on guns would be it becomes a slippery slope that will then lead to them not being able, legal citizens being able to get their guns that they feel like they have, they do have the right to have under the Constitution. They're concerned that it will infringe upon their Second Amendment rights. What do you say to the slippery slope argument?
I don't think it's well-founded if the laws are robust. You see, under the US Constitution, the right to bear arms as part of an organised militia. And remember, this was framed in the days of the period immediately following the Revolutionary War against the British, and the concern that the British would come back and you'd need an organised militia again to defend the Republic against the British. By the way, back in the 1780s and 90s, I would have utterly sympathised with that posture towards the British. Last time I looked, the likelihood of the British coming back and suppressing the American Revolution are fairly remote. So that's actually the black and white letter of the law context.
Did you catch that? All right. So the slippery slope is not founded, especially if you have robust gun laws. Let me just tell you, we have the most robust gun laws on the frickin' planet. Okay? FBI does a background check on every single firearm that's purchased. There's a 4473 on every single one. There is no gun show loophole. Any dealer across the country has to go through the NICS FBI system. That's a lie. What they're referencing is individual sales to each other. Anyway, that's besides the point. He's saying that the slippery slope is not a big deal. Keep that in mind. Slippery slope is not a big deal. Then he goes into the next piece where, the well-regulated militia, that the whole point there was to fend off the British should they come back. And by the way, I totally understand. At that time frame, the British were a pain in the butt, so I totally get it. But that's just not relevant now. Interesting. You kind of missed that second part where it said a well-regulated militia is essential to a free state, and also said the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Interesting. The people. Now, what's really fascinating is he basically said, well, you guys had militias and the Second Amendment was in place to fend off the British should they come back. The Second Amendment was in place to keep our own government in check because the British took our firearms in order to subjugate us even further. And that's a lesson from history which was written into our founding document of the Second Amendment. The whole point was to keep our rulers in check because they are of the people, by the people, and for the people, not of themselves. And if they get out of line, they can't subjugate us because we have our own means of defense. That's the whole point. This guy did it with a lovely, bip, bip, cheerio, lovely accent, but he doesn't get it, and he's trying to manipulate. Now, this is the part where it comes all together, so bear with me. I know you guys are still with me. Check this out.
But it doesn't mean you have the right to bear any form of arms. If you take it literally, does that mean the right to bear arms says that you should be able to have your own field howitzer in the backyard, that you should have the ability to have an anti-tank weapon, to run your own drones, which are armed? Of course not. So having a single-action shotgun is one thing. Having a semi-automatic or fully automatic weapon which can kill dozens of people in seconds, that's something else. So You can have the right to bear arms if it's single action. The judgment in this country, Australia, is it doesn't entitle you to bear any category of arms, hence the ban on semi-automatic weapons in this country.
And we already have.
Hence the ban on semi-automatic weapons in this country. Of course not. If you have the Second Amendment does not enable you to have anything more than a single action firearm. Interesting, because about 3 minutes ago you were saying that everyone has the right for the Second Amendment, Pam Brown on CNN. But interesting because the slippery slope's not a thing. Then he also does something that the left always does. They always do this in all their arguments. Think of abortion, for example. You're pro-life, so you're just okay with all babies from rape and incest, you're just extreme and you're far, far right. It's like 0.001%. What are you talking about? Oh, that's everything. You want it all. It's what they always do, and that's a little tactic they try. But the big thing here, guys, I want to tie everything that he just said together in the entire interview. Here's the bullet points. Pam Brown starts off and says, well, we have the Second Amendment right. And she kind of slipped up and said, well, they think they have they do have the right. We have the right for the Second Amendment. Then she starts talking about semi-automatic rifle and fully automatic rifle bans in Australia. Okay. Then she asked the question about the slippery slope. The guy says, no, there's no slippery slope. That's insane because the laws are good. And militias are not really practical because no one's going to come over and take your gun, so you only need to have those. Then he pivots immediately to the age-old left argument of, do you really need that? I mean, can you have a howitzer? Can you have a tank? Can you have a nuclear weapon? Nah, that's stupid. That's an extreme. Don't be an idiot. Then the important part. Then he comes out and flat out says, oh, of course not. You can't have those things. So the Second Amendment ensures you to have a firearm as long as it's a single action shotgun. You can't have a semi-automatic weapon that could kill multiple people in very few seconds. You need to have a single action firearm, and that falls into the Second Amendment. What he just said was he said no semi-automatic handguns, Glocks, anything, Smith & Wessons, I mean, God, I can't even think of all the brands. Springfields, any kind of handgun that you can imagine that's semi-automatic falls under that. No ARs, no AKs, no assault weapons. I call them sporting rifles, but whatever. The point is that leaves you with bolt-action rifles, revolvers, and pump-action shotguns. This is the same guy who literally started off by saying, the slippery slope is insane. No way, we would never do that. You just can only have single action. How do we get here? That's what they do, guys. They move the ball over and over and over and over again. This guy just did it in such a masterful way that it blew my mind how smooth he did this. Like I said, I didn't catch it, and I'll fall on that sword. I did not catch it until like 4 or 5 times watching it, but it was masterful in a very evil genius kind of way. That's what I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you think in the comments field below, and until tomorrow, we're going to keep watching them. I'll see you then.